Okay, so I am Trevor Taylor. This is episode number 1 of Leafman podcast. This is my co-host, Brooks McWhorter.
Hello.
Today, we're going to just do a Q&A, keep it very simple for episode 1, and talk about some of the things that we think that you guys should know about us and our business and why we think we have anything to say at all about
Granted.
anything.
All right. Do we just want to launch into questions, or do you have anything else any updates you need to bring up?
No, let's just launch into questions, right? Q&A. Let's get started.
All right. Perfect. Let's see. As a business owner, how do you develop self-discipline and use it every day?
It's a good question. So self-discipline is can be learned, right?
Yeah, of course.
Some people are born, I feel like, are born more with it, and some people develop it over time. You know, I feel like it's like any gift given to any individual, right? Like some people have more of it naturally, and some people need to work and develop it. In my personal opinion. So to develop self-discipline, I did not have a lot of self-discipline. People think that because I was in the Army, I have this unnatural.
Yeah. I had self-discipline when I was in the Army.
Yeah.
Because I had to.
Yeah, exactly. Because we were forced to, right? So for those of you that are first-time listeners, Brooks and I served together in 2000, the early 2010s.
2010.
Yeah, we deployed together to Iraq for 13 months, and we've been friends ever since. And then we started a tree business many years later. Yeah, so self-discipline was I feel like people think that because you're in the Army, you're just this naturally disciplined,
Yeah, it doesn't how do I want to say, transfer over once you go back into civilian life.
Yeah.
It's almost harder because you're I've been doing this disciplined, I've had this hard disciplined life for all these years. It's I'm finally free.
Yeah.
I can do what I want.
Nobody's telling you what to do, so it's not forced discipline anymore, right? So you have to relearn stuff on your own. And so for me, after the military, I didn't have a whole lot of discipline. I spent a lot of time drinking, a lot of time doing really whatever I wanted to do. I always worked pretty hard, but my self-discipline just wasn't there, or my physical health, my mental health, any of that stuff. And so a few years back, I got sober, and that's when self-discipline started for me, I think, personally. Just my own personal self-discipline journey, because it was really hard to not.
Because you had to.
Yeah, because I had to. So I white knuckled it, right? I didn't drink for a long time, and then eventually that stopped being a part of my life, or stopped being a thing that I thought about all the time, and it was on to master new disciplines. So the next one was physical health, right? Making myself go to the gym every day, making myself eat healthier. And sometimes you fail and sometimes you lose, and you go on these cycles where sometimes you're very successful with your discipline, and you go to the gym every day and you eat healthy, and other times you fall off the wagon and your discipline kind of lacks. I think to develop self-discipline, you just do hard things over and over again,
right?
Honestly,
right. And it's hard at the beginning because I feel like when someone discovers wanting to have self-discipline, they go from 0 to 100, and then they end up disappointing themselves and failing rather than creating realistic goals. Rather than being hey, I'm gonna go to the gym 5 days a week and eat well, they're just the first time they do it, they're okay, I'm gonna get self-discipline and I'm gonna look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You know what I mean? And then it's unattainable for ever, pretty much.
It doesn't yield the right results. Yeah, right. They set the goal. It's good to have high, really excessive goals, but you also need to understand how goal setting works. And that is, you have one big long-term goal, and then you break that down into small, manageable, bite-sized goals.
Right.
And so people often set their goal, I'm going to look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson by the end of the year. Okay, you can look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson maybe a few years down the road.
Maybe in 1,000 years.
But let's rein it in, and what can you do in actionable steps this week? And that's, did you go to the gym 5 out of those 7 days that you wanted to go? Did you eat healthy? And if you miss a little bit that day, restart the next day. Don't just quit because you don't look like Dwayne Johnson because you lost one day in the battle. You lost one day, restart the next, continue mission.
Right.
Yeah.
And just another question that I kind of thought up on the fly here that has to do with it. What part of your self-discipline routine kind of because I know I have my thing that I have to do every day, and that's the thing that makes or breaks my day. Is what's the discipline that you have that makes or breaks your day?
What's the discipline that makes or breaks my day? I go. So over a year ago, I did Andy Frisella's shout out 75 hard program, and part of the program is to do one outside workout every day for 45 minutes. And I started doing a walk every morning. I'll go like on a run or a walk 3 miles outside in the snow. And this year I like set a goal to do 6 miles because I did 3 miles every day last year. And this year I made that goal 6 miles a day. And I feel like garbage if I don't do my walk that day. It's like 1 hour of the day where I'm not running my business. I'm not putting out fires. I'm not, you know, I'm not working on anything other than just like doing my walk and listening to something that is furthering my mental development. So I'm like accomplishing one physical goal and one mental goal because during that hour and a half or hour, um, it's just time that I can like push my own personal progress forward. So
Right,
that's my
and bring me up to date on the latest fire.
yeah, and bring you up to date on the latest fire sometimes because we do roll out in the mornings and there's like always fires to put out. But
Yeah, for
whenever I'm
sure.
not on the phone with you, I'm literally just like listening to an audiobook or thinking about like what I need to do for my own personal growth. So it's when I can actually spend time growing me and not growing my business, not growing my marriage, not growing my spiritual responsibilities. It's just like me pushing me forward for a little bit.
Yeah, that's honestly like I feel like that's one of our biggest differences too. I always think about it and laugh, but it impresses me like how much you can listen to like autobiographies and these like self-help books. Like I love them. I love doing it. But if I read them every day, my brain would short circuit.
Yeah.
Because that. But also I'm a fan of fiction. You know what I mean? I like that stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever told you. I just think it's super impressive that you can
Listen to them over and over again.
and retain it.
Yeah. I like them, man. I love my autobiographies. I think that they have a lot to. Their stories are cool. I do listen to like fictional stuff though. You know, I throw fantasy in there and fiction, man. You know, I'm kind of nerdy a little bit. I like my comics and stuff. So.
But the autobiographies and stuff also almost keep you honest and keep you on track with your self discipline in the way that like if you're reading someone that's inspirational and then you're less likely to go eat a box of donuts. I feel like if you're reading Goggins one of Goggins' books, you're not gonna go like after that and you're gonna go do 1,000 pull-ups. You know?
Yeah. Well, it also puts things into perspective. You know, like for instance, in Michael Jordan's autobiography, not even to include his early career, just to include his later career. It took him 9 years to become the GOAT, right? He did 3 championships and then he took like 3 years off and then he did 3 more championships.
Right.
So
not to mention college. Not to mention college.
Yeah, just that part was a decade though. So when you're like 6 months into building your business or a year or 3, you know, like, and you're talking about complaining and you haven't gotten where you want it to go yet, you haven't even started. So why are you thinking that it's time to quit? Like, the ball hasn't even started rolling yet. And then you think about Michael Jordan doing that over the course of a decade, and then you read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, right? And he did that over the course of 50 years to build Nike. You know, like it was not like it started off small. So like you get all high and mighty, and I do it too. Everyone gets all high and mighty. Like I'm working so hard, and why is this not as far as it is? It's compounding, right? It takes time. Like first you got to build a little snowball from nothing. And then you push it and push it and push it and push it, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually that thing the momentum starts rolling it itself, and it doesn't require as much from you. But that doesn't happen overnight.
Right, exactly.
The physical load and mental load gets easier as you go. I don't necessarily think it gets easier, like I have more on my plate, but your capacity to carry it gets bigger, and it's also pushing itself. And those two things together is what becomes an unstoppable force.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I agree. Well, to practice our own self-discipline and stay on track.
Task.
Let's go to the next question. We've got this is a good one and a hard one to remember as far as how tough it was, but how did Trico start?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I'll let you start there.
Yeah. David and I were actually just talking about this last week. So
David's our videographer.
Yeah, David's our video guy. He's the Jamie of our podcast.
He's just taller.
Yeah. 5 years from now, and I'm gonna tag Joe Rogan in this because we actually have some room to stand on and be like, hey, look, this is our Jamie.
We're gonna call him Young David.
Young David. Yeah.
Anyways, how did Trico start?
So yeah, we were talking about Trico starting, and so I got. It's a very long, intricate story. Basically, I had been in a lot of trouble throughout my younger years, like after the military. I was a heavy drinker, and then I got sober and moved to Utah to like restart and everything. And my I got in trouble for something, and my dad bailed me out of jail. And when he bailed me out of jail, he asked me if I would go see um, the guy that runs his church in the LDS community. It's called a bishop. So I went and saw the bishop, and a few days later, he asked me if I needed any work because I was in hair school with Brooks at the time. And so I was like, yeah, I can do some remodel work for you. And I ended up remodeling his other business, his office. He has a very successful business. And we remodeled his office.
Yeah, it was a fun little project.
Yeah. Remodeled his office. And then he had some bunch of trees in his parking lot and asked me if I would trim his trees for him. And so, like, me and Brooks went out there and trimmed his trees for him. And then he jokingly, like, in passing, brought up starting a tree removal business because there's little to no overhead, and we were sorely mistaken about that.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, that was wrong.
That was wrong. Yeah, you just cut
wrong.
it down and take it to the dump, man. It's basically like no money.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, very little overhead, and he's like, but then I'm gonna buy this $100,000 bucket truck.
Oh yeah, just you know, all of this heavy duty equipment that gets hammered on every single day. Yeah, no big deal. Yeah, we're
just for you folks at home, there is overhead, lots of it.
Lots of it. Yeah. So it was we jokingly said that, and I had just gone to hair school. Brooks and I actually are licensed cosmetologists.
Which is another long story.
Another long story, but yeah, we are actually licensed cosmetologists. We both fulfilled 1,600 hours requirement, which is over a year of schooling, and then tested at the state boards and passed. So I just spent a year doing this, and I thought I was going to like be a licensed cosmetologist and like make a bunch of money. And so this opportunity came about, and I didn't know what to do. But then, you know, his gutter business was really good, and he was like an important figure in his community to me. Like I looked up to him. He was cool and like had his life together and was able to help other people, and that's what I wanted. So I chose to put hair school on hold and go into the tree business with him. And then I asked Brooks. I was like, hey man, I think I'm gonna do this tree business thing. Do you want to do it with me? And then Brooks was
like, first employee.
OG. Yeah. And Brooks was like, okay. And so we hand carried logs for over a year.
The worst.
We didn't know anything. Dude, we knew so little about tree business that we walked into an REI and we're like, hey, we need climbing gear. And they were like,
yeah.
This is not
they were like, this
the
is the
right
wrong
kind
stuff.
of climbing gear.
This is wrong. This is the wrong stuff.
Yeah, this is the wrong kind of climbing gear. This is not correct.
Yeah, for sure.
So we had like a lot of people that helped us along the way. Like literally at some point, Brooks and I were like YouTubing videos while during the tree work on how to climb and do tree work.
And not to mention the first day I had as an employee was also the first day I saw a chainsaw in real life.
Yeah. Yep.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah. So we started off with nothing, no clients, zero. And like Spencer, like we had one truck, one trailer, and it broke down all the time. And it was a big gamble for him, and it was a big gamble for us. You know, we didn't know anything about it. And we set our sights on a number that first year, and like we door knocked and we passed out flyers, and
yeah, we hired the church youth group to
hired the church youth group to like come out and pass out flyers.
And the ranch children.
Yep. We did like a bunch of different things. We were very like ingenuitive, and we did whatever we needed to make things work. And we both wore a lot of hats at that time. Like I was doing the sales and being the foreman and doing all of it. And then we just built and built and built. In the first year, we set the number pretty high for our revenue goals. We didn't quite get there. The second year, we doubled our first year. The third year, we doubled from our second year. And I think like our fourth year will double from our third year. So now we're in year 3 of building a tree business from no knowledge about tree removals, and we are at the $1 million mark.
Yeah, now we got a great crew and
great employees,
great culture and all that stuff.
And all that goes back to our original question about self-discipline. Like those things were accomplished because of self-discipline. Like Brooks and I both hyper focus on how to be good leaders. It's not necessarily telling people how to do things or telling people what to do all the time. It's showing them and leading by example, and then like taking the time to nurture those relationships and nurture good environments for people to work in, because we are servants of our employees and of our clients, not the other way around.
Right, exactly. I agree. And another random one for you. Let's see. Ooh, this goes into exactly what we were just saying. Great segue. Mm-hmm. What things are important? I would phrase this more. How did we cultivate our company culture? Like what was your vision and how did it come to be? And I'll obviously input as well.
Yeah. Well, like you said earlier, I've read a lot of these autobiographies, dude. And one thing that they all have in common is that they just care about their employees more than anything, and they care about their customers and clients. And so our company culture is just like that. Like we have candor with each other. We're very open with our communication. Like I have a lot to learn as a leader and a CEO and an entrepreneur, and I know that, which is why I'm okay with employees telling me like, "Hey, man, that didn't work out so well." Now, there's a fine line between being a pushover and being someone who listens and cares, and you have to establish that, like, even though,
I feel like as long as it makes sense, you should always take a suggestion
yeah,
from
yeah,
an employee.
mm-hmm.
There and it should always just be. It shouldn't be like, fine, then what's your idea? It should be like, tell me.
Yeah. Well, I forget who the quote was, but like there was a quote from someone, and it's like, you know, this might be not perfect, but the quote is, the genius of any company lies within the minds of its people, right? So like all of our employees they're in the field every day, things changing, like the world is changing, the tree world is changing, all these things. So if we're not listening to them and figuring out how to grow and how to better their lives, then we're not doing our job, because our job is to make their lives easier to do their jobs. And then in turn, because they have a good hospitable working environment, they make our lives easy because work is getting done and bills are getting paid and people are happy. So when you focus more on how to make people happy, customers included, your life becomes easy. So it's like giver's gain, right?
Right, and it's been a long journey. I feel like I would be curious as to know what you think as far as this, but like this company culture that we've cultivated is relatively new.
Yeah.
We went through a lot of stages of like you said, wearing so many hats and trying to handle so many things while also making lives easy for our employees and stuff. Before we had been built up and whatnot. When do you think that we, like when you and I had the first conversation where we really kind of turned it around from, like, remember when like Matt and Andrew and stuff like that, it was kind of just like morale was super low and we hadn't really figured it out yet. And then when, like, I feel like right after they left, right when we brought Spenny on, was kind of when we
Change that.
when we changed for the better in a big way, like in a noticeable way.
It was the reason that happened, and maybe your perspective on it is different. My perspective is every leader is learning to grow, right? And so like I spent the first 2 years of Trico in the field with the crew, also doing sales, and like every day I was like there motivating, telling people about my visions and dreams, and like here's where Trico is going to go, and like here's what we're planning on doing. We are going to take over Utah Valley and like be the best that we can be. But
at the very least, they're in the know.
Yeah, at least they were in the know. But then we had built to a point where I could get out of the field and like do my job working on the company, not in the company. The problem was I was still green, and I didn't understand or didn't know that I had to take time out of my day to go encourage the crew like that and inform them of those things, because the dream got lost because now it was secondhand. So like the foreman and the sales guys were hearing it from me, but they weren't necessarily relaying it to the rest of the guys, and morale is easy to drop down that way. So like I didn't do my job of helping everyone see the vision, and that's our job as leaders, is to make sure everyone sees the vision.
And it was also hard. I mean, it was pandemic, whatever.
Yeah.
But it was tough because for a little while you and me had talked a lot about that goes along with what you just said. Also the times when it just felt so like each crew felt so separate. Like Andrew felt so far away when he was a sales guy. He felt so far away from the crew. And then like you were, for a little while when you were really busy and you had all that stuff going on, like kind of around the time you married Erica, and you had all that house stuff going on, and there was a disconnect there with the guys. Like, I mean, I'll admit it to you now, but we were all back then. We were like, what was he doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's a disconnect and you're not sharing these things. Now we in our weekly meetings, just reiterating things and having guys be in the know, I think speaks further and goes further than most companies do these days.
Yeah, and that was part of the growth process that I didn't understand then. Like I had heard stuff and seen stuff from Spencer, but that was before I had, read all these books or like learned all this stuff and like really cared about learning how to like serve the guys. And that was like, at that time it was, we're growing Trico for certain financial numbers, or we had like certain financial goals, and those are still goals, but that's not really the goal now. The goal isn't to hit a certain financial number. The goal is to build the best working environment for employees and for servicing the greater Utah Valley with tree work, right? So like at that time I didn't understand those things. So I was like, oh yeah, the train is running. What do I need to do? Like the guys are doing their job, sales guys, like what do they need from me?
Yeah, you're almost always surprised, myself included, always surprised with how much, like, whenever I'm like, oh yeah, they're going to be self-sufficient, they're not ever.
Yeah.
And it's always such, especially with Andrew, was the biggest disappointment. He's been doing trees for 10 years of his life, and I was like, I'm gonna make you a sales guy. You'd
Yeah.
be great at it. And he
It just
sucked at it.
it just didn't pan out, you know. But that comes from like us as leaders. We have to develop too, right? Like, so I was put into a position, and you were put into a position that we'd never been in. And every time you do that, there's a counterbalance. But that's our job, right? As we grow into a $10 million company, $20 million company, statewide company, nationwide company, whatever, every time there's a new position that has not been there before. And that position needs to be carved out and learned, and the trials and errors need to be worked through. And then once that is good and you're self-managing there, then you put somebody else in that position, because now you can teach them the things that you had to learn from trial and error.
Right. And again, and seeing that path and us implementing it brings it back to that culture where the guys are happy. Like they know what's going on.
Yeah.
Not knowing what's going on is the worst thing you can do.
Yeah. My biggest thing, I think, as like as far as company culture goes, is like, even if you have a self-driving machine, your job as an owner or as a leader in any company is even if that machine is self-driving, you have to like maintain it, check on it, communicate with it, show it where it's going. And if you don't do those things, then like it's just gonna coast till it stops.
Yeah.
It
Exactly.
takes a lot of maintenance still. And that's what we do with Trico. Like, we try to instill like, hey, we have candor with each other. Hey man, talk to me about what you guys think we can work on, and we'll talk to you about things that we think you can work on. Or, you know, like, that's why in our huddles we have the problem and solution section, so everyone can say like, hey, this is a problem, here's how we can fix it. So it's not just them being told constantly what to do. It's, here's the big vision, here's how we think we can get there, what do you guys think?
And here's how you're a part of it.
Yeah, here's how you're a part of it. They need to feel like they are involved in something. It's a super important dynamic, you know. But
For sure.
Because we think about these things, you know, you and me actually take time outside of work and life to think about these things. That's I feel like that's what a good business owner does, is they think about like what they can do better to service their people.
Right.
And that is like a fundamental difference between successful companies and non-successful.
And I feel like the more you take care of your employees, like, yeah, obviously you got to be on them in the way of always having reviews, always checking in, yada yada. But the second you think it's gonna run itself, is without any oversight, is when you lose it.
Yeah.
But anyways, all right, let's move on to the next one. This will be a wordy one. I feel like I need to take an ibuprofen before I read this question. But what was it hard building a business, and what was hard about it? Everything.
Yeah, everything. We'll make it quick because we don't have much time left. But the hardest part of running a business, for me, the hardest part of running a business was teaching the guys, teaching employees like
to see the path.
And also, we live in a world where like so many people have demeaned, taken advantage of, or hurt one another, that it's like second nature for people not to trust you. So like rebuilding people's whole life to a point where it's like, hey, this is a trustworthy environment. Rebuilding that trust with employees is like, that's been super difficult to do, because it's like, you can tell them 1,000 times, but they heard it from 1,000 other bosses, because everyone hears it on Instagram. They know what to say to make people believe them.
And and it's almost like work is always like an F word, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Work, like, and a lot of people just growing up, you hear it, work on TV, on sitcoms, work, and like, I never. But I mean, I'm a culprit as well. I did the same thing. You know what I mean? It was what I was exposed to. And then like, but I'm proud of us in the way that, like, this company, I couldn't imagine working anywhere else now. Yeah. I couldn't imagine what it would be like, because to me, work was always work, and it was like 8 hours, and I was watching the clock the whole time. And now, like, all it is just every day trying to just build towards what we're building. Yeah. And it's just what I'm doing. It's not what I'm not being forced to do it, you know.
And that's the goal, right? Is to rebuild that trust with the guys, so they know that like we're men of our words. If I tell you that I'm going to get you to a certain point salary wise, or get you to a certain rank in the company, like, I will get you there.
Right.
But so many times it's been broken in the past, and so many people tell them, because they just regurgitate stuff from Instagram. Oh yeah, we're a family. we're family business and this and that. Like, but nobody actually stands by their words when things like when push comes to shove and things get hard. That's why we are doing things differently. That's why when things get tight in the winter, we take on debt to make sure our guys get paid, even if we're not doing tree work and making money, because we told them that we would make sure that they can provide for their families. And sometimes that means that we have to put ourselves in a dysfunctional spot in order to keep our word.
And in the long run, you're not losing money. You're gonna make more money because you're keeping your skilled guys that know your processes, that use your stuff. And the more loyalty you have,
Yeah.
the more money you're gonna make in the summer. It just translates directly. Like,
And you cannot build a large company without a bunch of people at the helm that trust each other, and that only comes from people doing the things they say they're going to do.
and the only companies that have high turnover and make a lot of money are fast food restaurants. You know what I mean? Like or like restaurant, like
Yeah.
stuff like that.
And we
It's
don't want
just
to be.
like-
I don't want to be a fast food restaurant.
And you don't want to be that.
Yeah, it's not even. I used to have dreams like when I first used to listen to like Steve Jobs' book and stuff like that. I had dreams of like changing the world, like all these like, oh, I'm gonna build like the biggest tree business, and or like maybe tree business isn't right because it doesn't. It's not like this huge worldwide thing. But then the more I get into it, the more I start thinking about the employees and what I care about. The more I realize that like it's not even about that. What it is about is taking the people that we have now and expanding as much as we can and making room for as many people as we can to live like really good, rock solid lives. And that just means like caring.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter the size of what we're building. It just matters the intent of why we're building it. The intent is to do good work and provide a good working environment to a lot of people.
And if you intend on doing it, usually you'll do it.
Yeah.
Or you'll come close.
Yeah.
Aim small, miss small.
All right, man. Well, I think that's all we got today.
All right. Yep. I got nothing else.